Look at your life. Look at your choices. Choosing to watch this video is the best choice that you've ever made. In case you're new here, kindly consider subscribing to this channel. And for the returning subscribers, thank you so much for always coming back and appreciating my content. We are continuing with the analysis of A Silent Song and Other Stories. And today we are moving on to the last story of this book, that is Checkmate by Kevin Baldeosingh from Trinidad. I'm sure you're going to enjoy, so kindly sit back, relax, and just enjoy the analysis. To begin with, we want to start by analyzing the characters in this book, talking about the characters in the book. The first character that we have in the book is Sukia. Sukia is also the protagonist of this story and also a financial manager. We also have the next character as Randall. Randall is the checkmate to Sukia, and Randall is the company owner. And then we have Margaret, who is the Randall's secretary. And then we have the bank teller, we have the Chinese, and those are the main characters that we can associate with or relate with in the book. So they have different traits, and we can see that Randall and Sukia as the main characters in this book. Randall is so manipulative, and Sukia as well. They deceive each other, they work together, and remember, Randall is the boss of Sukia. So we're going to find out what happens in the book. First of all, let's start with the discussion. At the beginning of the book, we are introduced to Sukia visiting the bank. This is a poor lady from a poor background, a damsel from a poor background. And coming to the bank, this woman is ready to deposit a good amount of check and talks about $30 million. Comes and deposits this amount to the bank. And we see, according to the savings of this woman, there are a lot of savings with the deposit that are shown. They make some arrangement with the teller, and the teller advises her to open a US saving account and return the following day, because the money that this woman was coming to deposit was a lot. It was too much that they could not allow it to be deposited. Reason being, it can be taken for fraud, it can be taken for another thing, it can be taken for theft. So this teller advises Sukia to come back the following day after opening an account. Sukia leaves the bank, goes back home without depositing this money. And then there are also background information that were told about this lady, that she could travel miles to go and just deposit a check. And that one is also seen. Sukia has to travel from Trinidad, Grand Cayman, to deposit checks to her account every 2 months, because there are a lot of money that comes in, and this woman is rich. And we are also introduced to the story where inside the locker of this woman there were a lot of checks that had not even been deposited, and some she might not even use them in the future. So that is happening. And then again, we also have after failing to deposit the money at the bank, and the teller advising her to come back tomorrow when they open a US account, dollar account, then this woman goes back to the apartment. And Sukia, going back to the apartment, she's pleased that she's been able to handle the awkward situation at the bank, and then decides to check her personal private records before meeting the boss. And when you're talking about the boss here, we are talking about Randall. Before going and meeting Randall, she decides to check on some personal and private records. Then at the same time, she's happy and romanticizes the $5 million. You can imagine that's a huge amount of money. So romanticizes about it. Then after being in the apartment, this woman decides now to go to the company office and to meet with Randall. And going to the company office, she decides that to inspect on these checks. And first of all, she confirms that the check dates are correct, and then goes to Randall for explanations. The truth unfolds that money that Randall had sent this woman, had written a check for this lady Sukia, was supposed to help this woman close her mouth, to shut her mouth. Let's read that part here. Randall says, she pressed a button on her iPhone. Randall's words from the speaker were instant but clear. Off the books. It's your fee for keeping your mouth shut about the methanol deal. There's a deal that this man the boss of this company, the owner of this company, was supposed to strike with the methanol company, the Chinese that were involved. And this deal was supposed to be struck. Instead of doing it in a very good way, this man undervalues the shares by 50%. And that is why Randall is aware that Sukiya is capable of knowing all this. So it is important that I give Sukiya a check. This check will help Sukiya to keep her mouth shut, not to say anything to these people. And then again, just the signature that belonged to Sukiya. Forging this signature uses the same pen that Sukiya uses to sign. So it is a way that this man was trying to manipulate, or rather deceive Sukiya. And then the technology, this is all about technology. There's a specific pen that you use, and then they also the signing of those checks. And this, because of this technology that Randall used against Sukiya, Sukiya also uses this technology against Randall by using the phone to record everything that happened. So when they meet, back to what we've been talking about, when they meet at the office, at the boss office, Sukiya approaches the boss and confronts him, and Sukiya wants an explanation about all the money that has been signed, the deposit that was supposed to go to her account. And confronting this man starts to speak by saying that I used your signature, I used your pen, I forged it, so all the blame will be on you. So the nervousness Sukiya felt in the bank that morning had merely caused a flutter in her stomach. Now she felt as though her stomach was a cold, tight ball. Her mouth had gone dry. She drew a deep breath and kept her voice steady. Your signature on these checks don't match. Each one looks different. Only that one, she nodded at $5 million check at the center, is written in your normal hand. That is the same handwriting, forging the signature. Randall's smile became even wider, but his teeth were still covered by his lips. Actually, it's only close to my normal hand. Apparently, someone in the office had access to blank checks and forged my signature. Even the signature on this check, which, as you say, is quite close to mine, was written with your pen. He pulled out her Tibaldi rollerball from his inside pocket. It's quite a nice pen. So, the signature that was forged, it was Sukiya's signature. This is how Randall, or rather, deceives or manipulates Sukiya. And the pen that was used to sign this check was Sukiya. Randall's desk, and signed a check for herself. That is fraud, trying to manipulate someone and make them look bad after everything that you did. You put a blame on someone else. That is what Randall is trying to do in this part. And then what did Sukiya do? Sukiya now comes back with another scheme. This one was successful because it is true. Someone will believe it. So it will look like the same person. This person who deals with finances forged it and wanted that money be transferred to her account. So this woman is now cunning, comes up with an idea, records all the speech about everything they've been talking about. Remember, Randall uses technology to con, or rather to deceive this woman. This woman again uses this same technology to deceive Randall and says that and records everything about them. And when you look at the relationship between these people, from the beginning they've been having a very good relationship, and the boss could trust Sukiya, that is Randall. And because of this trust, they were so close, they were working so closely. And this woman who was from a village, from a poor background, now comes here and they're working, now knows all the ways of these people, and now becomes different and manipulative, decides to record everything that they were talking about and uses this against Randall, which we find the book ends in a very great agony, when now Randall is forced to kneel down before the mistress. And we can read that part. Still holding her phone up, she walked to the window and hoisted herself onto the inside ledge, wriggling back into the recess. The marble was cool under her thighs. The city was spread beneath her, and the green-grey sea rippled beyond. Sukiya felt the warmth of tropical sun through the thick plate glass as she leaned back. "Come, Randall," she said. "Come, kneel before your mistress." So uses this to manipulate this man. We can see that clearly. And then there's also another character that they talk about, Margaret. Margaret is the secretary to Randall. They say that Margaret is paid a lot of money because Margaret knows about Randall's dealings that no one in the company knows. So because Margaret knows a lot, she's paid a lot, because Randall cannot allow this woman to expose him, sorry. So it is important that the woman is paid a lot of money. And that is where we get now to the thematic concerns. Thematic concerns in this book. Number one, we can see there is corruption. We can see there is corruption even in the dealings, where the secretary has to be paid a lot of money because the secretary knows more than anyone else in the company knows about the dealings of Randall. Then they pay the secretary a lot. The same as paying someone to be silent about an issue. Yes, and then again we see there's also under corruption, fraud, and bribery. Another theme we can also talk about, the check that is written to Sukiya, the check to keep her mouth shut. This is the same as bribing someone. You know that they know the truth, but you don't want them to speak about this truth. So it is important that you do something unreasonable, because they write a very huge amount of money inside that check and they sign it off. This boss signs it off, Randall, and by signing it, it means that is bribery, that is corruption, to hide all that have been happening. This is done by just giving a lot of money. And then we can also see that in page 108, we can see that the tailor is advising Sukiya to or Miss Chancing to open a new account, US dollar account. And there we can read, except now Sukiya was facing one of those very tailors and feelings of flutter in her stomach. She said, "What you mean?" Then stop. She took a breath to make sure her voice was steady and making sure to pronounce each word properly, said, "I don't understand what you mean. That check is $5 million. The tailor nodded. "Yes, Miss Chancing. It's for $5 million US. If you're depositing the check in your savings account, I just have to contact our Treasury Department to get exchange rate approval. But it should be about 30,242,000 Trinidad and Tobago dollars." She gestured with the check and Sukiya almost flinched. "Or would you like to open a US dollar account?" They're cooperating. You can imagine the tailor telling Sukiya about opening account. The tailor, in her sensible bank uniform with her sensible hairstyle, began to recite the benefits of a US account for that sum of money. But Sukiya, aghast at her own carelessness, barely had her. A US dollar check. She would not have made such a mistake 16 years ago, when she was just 25-year-old attorney fresh out of law school. So moving on to the next theme that we get here, there's deception and manipulation that I've been talking about. There's forging of signature to keep the company afloat and protect himself. This man is forging the signature. And by forging this signature, Randall doesn't want to run bankrupt. Here also employs deception and manipulation by recording her conversation with Randall. That we can see she's picking up a phone and showing it and says that it doesn't only record but also send mails to mean Randall is finished. If people will see the mails, if people are going to hear what Randall was telling Sukiya or Miss Chancing about the money, the check that is meant for her closing her mouth on the methanol deal with the Chinese, then it will be a bad one. Yes. And then also there's also the loyalty and betrayal. We can see that this same woman have been loyal throughout, and we can see at the end now betrays Randall. Sukiya betrays Randall at the end, and we can also see that. So yeah, that is almost everything about Checkmate. if you're gonna read this book, you will find out more things about this book. It's a very nice read by Kevin Baldeosingh from Trinidad, and it's a nice thing, the checkmate. So from the title, we can see that the title has been derived from a lot of checks, checkmate, and then we have checks all over the book. The main characters in this book, all the stories revolves around money and checks, all that we can see. That is why the title is the checkmate. And see, it's a nice read, and I'm sure when you read this, you're going to enjoy. So until then, thank you and have a blessed time.